Today is May 11th, 2010, and I'm Audra Quinn, Managing Editor of the Grazie Dio Business Review. Today we are very pleased to welcome to the GBR a 30-year veteran of the banking industry, Robert Iritani, who is the Executive Vice President of Specialty Banking at City National Bank. He actually joined City National Bank back in 1998, where he was the Senior Vice President and Manager of the bank's corporate banking department, which he actually founded. He still oversees corporate banking, but he also has grown to include responsibilities in international banking, global markets, agribusiness, franchise finance, and the municipal finance department. Under his leadership, specialty banking has also grown to become the most successful division of the bank. Mr. Iritani's expertise includes asset-based lending, commercial, corporate, and international banking, credit card financing, mergers and acquisitions, energy and entertainment industry lending, structured finance, equipment leasing, and private banking. Prior to his role at City National, he also held leadership roles at other large banking institutions, including Wells Fargo Bank and the Union Bank of California. Interviewing Mr. Iritani today will be Dr. Abraham Park, who is the Assistant Professor of Finance here at the Grazie Dio School of Business and Management. Dr. Park teaches real estate investments in finance and corporate finance here at the MBA level, and his research interests include REITs and corporate real estate. He also brings to the table more than 12 years of experience in law, a Silicon Valley technology startup venture, management consulting, hedge funds, and global real estate finance. Dr. Park has worked and lived here in the United States, in Asia, and in Europe. We really hope that you enjoyed the interview today, and for all the latest in research and analysis in the business world, join us at gbr.pepperdine.edu. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here with us, Bob. Could you tell us a little bit about City National Bank and what you do, what position you hold, and some of the roles that you have within the bank?
Sure, and I've been there for about 12 years now. I've been a banker for 30 years. All of it here in California, so I have, in my opinion, a real distinct advantage over a lot of other people, and that pretty much any company here in the greater Southern California area, at one time or another, I've already gone out there and met them, or if I haven't met them, I can make 1 or 2 phone calls, and I can find out about nearly every company and what they're doing and how well they're performing. So I have a distinct advantage over a lot of the competition out there. I run what we call specialty banking, and specialty banking is a number of different niche businesses that we've put together to look at certain industries and figure out, if you will, how to do it a little bit better. And by creating these specialized niche businesses, what we've done for ourselves is hopefully create 2 things. The first one is instant credibility. If I tell you that I already bank 10 franchise McDonald's operators located in Southern California, and you're in that business, my bet is that when I come out and meet with you, I have instant credibility. Number 2, hopefully you'll sense that I understand what I'm doing and that I can help you, and that when I come to you and say, this is the rate I'm going to charge you for your loan, even if it's 0.25% greater than what perhaps you could find in the market, you'll feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, there's enough value added for what you're doing that I'll pay the extra 0.25%. That's why we do it. We found the instant credibility and the ability, if you will, to get better pricing. And all of that means that our shareholders hopefully feel at the end of the day that they're going to get a better return investing in City National Bank than all the competition out there, and they'll buy our stock.
In addition to lending, could you explain a little bit more on the value-added services you would provide for your clients?
Sure. When we go out and meet with our clients, I look at it as kind of breaking it into what I call 3 different groups. Number 1, money. Pretty confident that no matter where you go, no matter what institution you go to, you're going to see the same money. George Washington on a green bill, no matter where. That isn't going to change. It's a commodity aspect. Number 2, I'm in a regulated industry. So that means that there are only certain things that I'm allowed to do. I can't give you a 100-year mortgage. I can't give you a credit card with 200% interest. There are only certain types of things that I'm allowed to do. So I have regulations around what and how I operate. So the third one is what I call service, the value-added service. If I can make you feel comfortable that from my 30 years of being in banking, that I've seen nearly every company, and I've helped nearly every type of company grow from, let's say, a single operator to a multi-operator, from a single state location to a multi-state location, from a single entrepreneur to developing an operation that is on a worldwide basis. Those types of value added hopefully make you feel better about our institution compared to others out there.
Especially during times like these, I would assume that that kind of an experience can be a real plus for many of your clients.
You couldn't have said it better. As we're out there in the market, it's actually our best time to talk to clients about how and what we can do to help navigate these fairly tough times. And I'd like to say that we've put together a group of bankers that have many years of experience of actually doing those same types of things for many different types of companies in many certain industries that we're involved in. And time in and time out, we're seeing the clients come back to us and go, wow, it's great to be part of City National Bank.
As you mentioned, currently the businesses seem to be stuck at a crossroads, somewhere between a recession that officially ended last summer, but currently still struggling through. What is your view of the economy going forward?
Yeah, I saw you stumble there too. Is it really over?
Not sure about that.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're all trying to sort out. Is the recession really over? We're seeing certainly some real positive indicators that would suggest that the economy and the recession is over, but yet at the same time, we still have unemployment that's at a double-digit number. And with that double-digit number, I think most of us are pretty worried that it may not be over. One little cocktail party type of story I say is, if you went out today and met with a bunch of friends, and you were sitting there and you had just bought a brand new car the day before, would you feel comfortable at that cocktail party telling everybody that you bought a brand new car? Until you are, the economy probably isn't out of the recession. That's my little cocktail party story about how to measure whether or not the recession is really over. But I think it's a really true one. When people feel comfortable that the world is better, then the economy is probably moving in the right direction.
I see. We have seen recessions before. What is your view as to this current recession and how it might be different from the past recessions, and what we might do going forward that might be different from the previous recessions?
Yeah. This is a tough one because I think the main difference today versus what we've seen in the other recessions is that it's a global recession. And global today means an awful lot. I mean, we've come up with this new acronym, PIGS. We never said that 10 years ago, 20 years ago on any of the other previous downturns. That's because PIGS stand for other European countries. And that's just part of the equation. Last week, we both saw that there was real concern with Greece as to what was going to happen there. And everybody here in the United States was very fearful, will that impact us? In fact, the stock market here in the United States fell by 600 points. Over the weekend, a lot of negotiation, a lot of discussion. Sunday our time, Monday their time, they announced a $1 trillion bailout package. Great news for everybody. Stock market here in the U.S. I'm not talking about Europe now, I'm talking about here in the U.S. up 600 points. Big difference. It's clearly a global economy. It's clearly a global issue that we're facing today. And as a consequence of that, I think that we here in the United States, when we wake up in the morning, we don't think just about ourselves, but we are thinking about what's going on in the rest of the world. I don't buy stocks too much anymore, but now when I wake up and I think about it, the first question I ask myself, what happened with the Japanese stock market? That's the first question we ask. You never did that 20 years ago. So really, there's a lot of differences today.
So most people have considered globalization of economies as a positive thing. So from what you're saying, it almost seems that the globalization could potentially be a negative thing for the world. What is your opinion on that?
In my opinion, globalization's a great idea, a great concept. One of the stories I talk about is what I call the new circle of life. And what does that mean? So today, my first question is, when you throw away waste paper, do you think about where that's going and what people are doing with that? Probably not. Here in the United States, do we really think in any form or fashion that we could put in a smokestack industry? Never. I don't believe either one of those. And because of that, these two new concepts out there, there is somewhere else in the world that all this fits together. In China, they take all this waste paper and they put it into a smokestack industry, and they produce corrugated paper that is then made into boxes that sends all those goods here to the United States. That's what I call the new circle of life, of how all of us throughout the world are interconnected together. And that's the big change. This global concept of us all working together is dramatically different than it was 10 to 15 years ago. Out of the United States, the largest exported by volume, number of, if you will, containers going out of the United States, number one product, waste paper. Big
Didn't know
change.
that. Big change. Given the current recession then, in terms of the financial industry or the financial management side of the international trade, what types of trends do you see going forward?
I see two trends primarily. The first one is a need for greater financial transparency. And what I mean by that is that we're really concerned and have been really concerned about what is going on in the financial markets. Lehman Brothers, we were not sure what was happening there. AIG, we were not sure what was really going on there. Goldman Sachs, we're not really sure what's going on there. So we have congressional hearings now, the Fed is in there asking all these questions. But at the end of the day, they're trying to understand what's really going on. And I do believe that the American public is not sure what's happening out there. And because they're not sure, everybody's afraid. And that fear has caused the economy. That fear has caused people's confidence. That fear has precipitated the economy getting worse. And so going forward, I think having greater financial transparency will be a real positive thing. And I see that trend taking place. The second one, financial regulatory reform. As much as it pains me personally, because it's going to be more on me as a banker, I do believe for the system and for the world economy, putting in a little greater financial regulatory reform will cause the markets to moderate their performance a little bit. We don't have to have it, but it would cause greater highs, but if you will, the converse, greater lows. And it's those lows that everybody would be very, very scared of. So I do believe that you need financial regulatory reform.
Changing the topic slightly,
Right.
could you explain to us the concept of global supply chain finance?
Right. Okay. So there's a couple concepts that I'm trying to put on the table when I talk about global supply chain. The first concept is, first, a recognition of how trade takes place. 90% of trade takes place on an open account basis. 10% of it's done with letter credit or other types of guarantees in order to make people feel comfortable. The global supply chain tries to take that concept of recognizing that things are done on an open account basis and add a greater element of understanding across the entire process of moving a good that's manufactured somewhere, let's say in China, and bringing that good here to the United States. So the way it starts off is that a company here creates an order to sell widgets to XYZ company. They place that order then back to a manufacturer in China, and that company in China who's doing the manufacturing needs money in order to produce the goods. They'll typically go to their financial institution and ask them, I have an order from a company in the United States who says they're going to sell it to XYZ company if we get the goods to them by a certain date in the future. That bank in China that's looking at that loan request, if they had communication with the bank here in the United States and knew that that transaction really was real and felt comfortable that if the goods got here, that sale would take place, might they be more willing to provide the financing for that?
Yeah.
The global supply chain creates the transparency across that entire chain so that everybody knows what's going on. If the bank in China goes, okay, I know those orders are really going to take place, I will, if you will, provide the money to the manufacturer to allow him to make the goods are made, the bank in the United States goes, oh, okay, you need some financing in the interim period of time. We know that those goods are going to be coming here because we've contacted the bank in China. They in turn then allow the U.S. distributor some additional working capital needs that they have. It augments the flow of funds and, if you will, causes the product to be manufactured on a less expensive basis. Moreover, what we try to do is add in the logistical part. So the goods get to the port, they need to transport across the ocean to the United States. We get the freight forwarding company, the shipping company to also be a part of this system. They provide on a real-time basis, you've seen it, the little ship traveling across the ocean, that type of information so that there is transparency, where there is knowledge of where the goods are at all times during that entire process. That then allows that commerce to take place that I talked about on an open account basis. Each of the financial institutions feels more comfortable about what's going on, and hopefully what that also does is improve communication and relationships on a worldwide basis.
International trade is one of the key industries for California, and it is a sector that has been hit particularly hard during this recession.
Right.
What do you see on the horizon for international trade for California?
Okay, California, my favorite subject. First, within California, we have the two largest ports in all of North America. That gives us a distinct advantage over anywhere else. Secondly, we at City National Bank were part of a commission that was put together by the mayor about 5 years ago. And in that commission, what we found out is that the logistics industry is the number one employer of people in Southern California by industry. When you combine those two concepts together, and I haven't even talked about the weather yet. When you combine that with the wonderful weather we have, it only means one thing: great growth, great opportunity, and, if you will, a bright future for international trade. So I'm very bullish on the state of California as it relates to international trade.
Many Asian countries have been developing their manufacturing capabilities as a way to increase their exports and grow their economies. What does this mean for the U.S. and I guess a little bit more detail about California as well, if you can go into that?
Okay, so I was talking earlier about how if you take an item and you turn it over 20 years ago and it said made in China, and you would look at it and think about it a little bit and you go, not sure. Today, if you take an item, you turn it over, and it doesn't say made in China, you're kind of thinking, I'm not sure about that anymore. That's how, if you will, the Asian countries of this world have become really the manufacturing arm for the United States. Mm-hmm. How did those goods come in? I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the two largest ports. There's a distinct advantage that those two ports have over anywhere else along the western seaboard for North America. The primary one, also that I mentioned earlier, is weather. I know that they have a port up in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area, and in fact I used to live up there. Mm-hmm. Wonderful state, loved it up there when I lived there, but I also recognize that it does rain up there an awful lot. Mm-hmm. Also, to get across that state, the first thing out of Seattle that you run into is a set of mountains called the Cascades. Fairly treacherous when it's raining, not an easy means of transportation. Here in Southern California, I mentioned that the logistics industry, number one employer by industry. I think of a lot of it has to do with the trucking industry. Because for us here, any good that comes into our ports, easy means of transportation throughout moving it to anywhere in the United States. Significant advantage over anywhere else in North America. We have such a melting pot here in California of different ethnic backgrounds, religions, all things that one can imagine. Asia, Europe, Australia, Africa, Latin America, throughout the United States, all come to California. And when you drive around in California, there are so many different pockets. It's really hard for somebody moving here to not be able to find a way to be comfortable, let alone the weather again, and I keep talking about that, but I enjoy it. Mm-hmm. With that, what it means is that the ability to conduct commerce on a worldwide basis is more easily connecting the dots here in Southern California than I think anywhere else. We talk about New York being the financial center of the world, clearly in the United States. That's true on just the financial side. But when you talk about the true movement of goods, the true trade taking place, nowhere else is it going to work better than coming through California.
Just by a way of wrap up,
yeah.
Given your 30 years of experience,
mm-hmm.
where do you see as the profitable industry going forward, let's say within the next 5 years here in California? Or what types of businesses you see as the businesses that will actually be making money going forward?
Wow, that's a really tough question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Okay. Here in California, I've hit on trade so much, I can't help but be enamored with the prospects of where that's going for the future. Okay. I think California represents the gateway to the United States of bringing goods in from Asia. I think Asia represents today our greatest manufacturing arm to how goods are made. And so as a consequence, I look at international as being one of the key areas. Mm-hmm. Entertainment. City National is big in entertainment, mm-hmm. has been for over 50 years now. It will continue to be big in entertainment going forward. Mm-hmm. There's something wonderful about entertainment that we all love, mm-hmm. and we at City National are fortunate to be a part of that industry, and so we'll never move away from that. And so I look at that as also a big area. The last one, to go full circle on where we started, my area, the specialty niches that we're creating, all of them, in my opinion, before we make a decision to go in there, we've thought about the macro aspect of the industry and where it's going and what's going on and what do we need to do in order to be, if you will, effective and efficient. And so we've picked those industries because we think the future is going to be bright in those areas. So specialty industries, international, as well as entertainment, that's City National Bank, and that's where I work, and I feel very happy and fortunate to be a part of it.
Bob, thank you for joining us today. This is the Grazie Dio Business Review. Please find us online at gbr.pepperdine.edu.